New intelligence suggests that as many as 12 United Nations employees took part in the Hamas October 7th attack into Israel. The Houthis struck and damaged a commercial vessel in the Gulf of Aden, and a group of U.S. lawmakers pushed back on President Biden, saying that he does not have the authority to conduct military strikes in Yemen. So let's get into it. I'm recording this at 9 a.m. Central on Saturday, January 27th, 2024. Overnight news came out that intelligence had been released by Israel, shared with the United States, Canada, the United Nations, and others, that a group of UN employees took part alongside Hamas during the October 7th attack into Israel. We've got a couple statements here worth reading through. From the U.S. State Department, they said, quote, "The United States is extremely troubled by the allegations that 12 UNRWA employees may have been involved in the October 7 Hamas terrorist attack on Israel. The Department of State has temporarily paused additional funding for UNRWA while we review these allegations and the steps the United Nations is taking to address them." The UNRWA stands for United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East. It is a component of the United Nations and a major aid organization operating in Gaza. Now, something that's notable here is that Israel has in the past, very recent past, accused the UNRWA of facilitating Hamas activities, of knowing where some of these tunnels are and allowing rocket launch sites from near their facilities, things like that. And those are always pushed back on by the UN, where they say, we condemn these allegations. We would never do anything like this. That's not how it was received here. So the chief of the person in charge of the UNRWA put out a statement saying any UNRWA employee who is involved in acts of terror will be held accountable, including through criminal prosecution. To protect the agency's ability to deliver humanitarian assistance, I have taken the decision to immediately terminate the contracts of these staff members and launch an investigation in order to establish the truth without delay. So again, in past instances, it's been a lot of, that isn't true, we don't know what you're talking about, there's no truth to these allegations. In this case, the head of the UNRWA said, got it, we're going to fire those people, and immediately launched an investigation into what is going on here. Then in terms of the new information that came out here, an Israeli official told Axios that the IDF had provided information that pointed to the active participation of these UNRWA staffers, along with the use of UNRWA vehicles and facilities in the October 7th attack. They add that a lot of the intelligence that was gathered here to put this together, to be able to present the United Nations and other countries with what they've come up with, was a result of interrogations of Hamas militants who were captured on October 7th. So they gathered information not just from videos and pictures before and after this attack, but also from militants involved in the actual operation, pointing to participation by some of these UNRWA staffers. Then turning down to the Red Sea, where the Houthis yesterday fired one anti-ship ballistic missile that struck the Marshall Island-flagged oil tanker MV Marlin Luanda. According to U.S. Central Command, the ship issued a distress call and reported damage. The USS Carney and other ships responded, were rendering assistance, and they say that no injuries had been reported at that time, no injuries to the crew. I'm going to put up a couple of pictures here. Take these with a little bit of caution. These are supposedly from this event, showing the tanker, the damage to the tanker, and that it had been struck and was on fire. There's been a lot of mis and disinformation floating around in the form of pictures and videos tied to some of these previous Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. So I believe that these are from the event that I'm talking about here. But either way, whether these pictures are from this event or not, it has been confirmed by both sides that this ship was struck by a Houthi missile. So the Houthi statement, they said the Houthi naval forces carried out a targeting operation on the British oil ship Marlin Luanda in the Gulf of Aden, using a number of appropriate naval missiles. The strike was direct and resulted in the burning of the vessel. Again, whether or not those pictures that I just shared are accurate from this one, I believe they are. We have both sides confirming at this point that the commercial vessel was struck. The Houthi statement continued by saying the Yemeni armed forces confirmed the continuation of their operations in the Red and Arab Bahrain against Israeli ships or those heading to the ports of occupied Palestine until the aggression stops and food and medicine are brought to the besieged Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. So I feel like it's worth bringing that up every time that there is a Houthi strike or an attempted Houthi strike, is that this is their rationale. This is what the Houthis are saying is their reason for conducting these strikes. They're wanting to alleviate the military operation in Gaza right now. And then according to U.S. Central Command, they also struck a Houthi target yesterday. They say there was an anti-ship missile that was aimed at the Red Sea, prepared to launch. U.S. forces identified the missile, carried out a preemptive strike, it's kind of what they're calling it, that they said served as an imminent threat to merchant vessels and U.S. Navy ships in the region. Now, in terms of what the Houthis' response has been so far, they haven't stopped these attacks. Clearly, we're just talking about one that actually struck a commercial vessel. I've seen stats saying that overall shipping through the region is down 40%. That is not going to change if the Houthis are only conducting one attack every 3 days. The number of Houthi attacks against commercial vessels has to drop off to zero for a sustained period of time for those shipping numbers to return to normal. So we're nowhere near that right now. A couple more kind of tidbits from the Houthi perspective, if you will. They put out some videos here, some pictures here showing that millions, they say, gathered in the capital in support of the oppressed Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip under the slogan, Yemen and Palestine are in one trench. They also put out some pictures of a military training exercise and a graduation ceremony for what they called, quote, the Battle of the Promised Conquest and the Holy Jihad. Now, there's a lot of stuff like this going on all across the Middle East. I feel like it's worth sharing what the Houthis are doing right now because we are engaged directly in military confrontation of sorts with the Houthis, right? Just in the last 24 hours, the U.S. has launched attacks against Houthi positions and has intercepted Houthi munitions being fired out into the Red Sea. So what we've got here, and there's some interesting pictures that I wanted to share. They say that the maneuver was carried out on various multiple hypothetical targets of the Zionist and American entities, including buildings, fortifications, and fixed armored mobile vehicles. And you can see some of these. There's like a disabled or half-destroyed MRAP, it looks like, American vehicle. Don't know where they got that from, right? Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, maybe. And then a tank where they have some Israeli flags draped over that to, make it look like an Israeli tank that they're gonna attack. They say the participants in the maneuver confirmed their readiness to fight in the battle of the promised conquest and holy jihad and to stand with the heroes of Gaza, whatever the cost, under the leadership of the commander, whenever and wherever he wants. So again, no real indication at this point that the Houthis are going to slow down anytime soon, and we're still seeing a lot of posturing from things like this. Their military forces saying, we're ready, we're going to do this, we're going to fight for as long as it takes. Just, again, something we've really got to keep an eye on here. Now, moving back to the United States, not everybody is on board with continued military action against the Houthi targets in Yemen. Earlier this week, 30 members of the U.S. House of Representatives across both parties, Republicans and Democrats, who never agree on anything, but they came together here, sent a letter to President Biden saying that military action against the Houthis needs congressional authorization in order to move forward. This has been a hot-button issue. Personal opinion, I feel like it should have been a much bigger issue over the past 20 years, and it hasn't been. For those of you not in the United States, or maybe for those of you in the United States, as a little background here, we have for at least 20 years now been conducting military operations at the president's behest, essentially. This is not a Republican or a Democrat thing. It spans multiple administrations. But most of the military operations that we've been carrying out around the world, all of them, have not been through an authorization have not been through an act of war declared through Congress. There have been authorizations pushed through Congress. But there's been a lot of debate. Again, not as much as I would have liked to see, but it's coming up again here. Is this something that the U.S. should get involved with? And what these Congress people are saying is this is not up to the president. This is up to Congress and the people to make this decision. So what they wrote in this letter that I'll share here is, quote, while we share your administration's concerns about Houthi threats in the Red Sea, we write with serious concern regarding unauthorized U.S. military strikes against the Houthis in Yemen. We urge your administration to seek authorization from Congress before involving the United States in another conflict in the Middle East. We believe the U.S.'s unauthorized strikes in Yemen violate the Constitution and U.S. statute. We ask that your administration outlines for us the legal authority used to conduct these strikes, and we urge your administration to seek authorization from Congress before conducting any more unauthorized strikes in Yemen. So we'll see. It's notable. A couple big things here. For one, bipartisan, right? So you're seeing some Republicans, some Democrats together here. Don't see that a lot really with anything in American politics these days. So you got to take note there. It does look like this letter came out prior to the most recent U.S. strike. Now, the U.S. is calling it a defensive in nature preemptive strike against Houthi targets, but the letter came out before that. And that raises a question here as well. You start to get into some legal nuance and a lot of debate, and it's all over my head. People much smarter than me get into these conversations. But there's an aspect here where U.S. forces do not need to seek presidential approval to act in self-defense. So if an American base somewhere around the world is facing, they're about to be overrun, they can defend themselves. They don't have to wait for Congress to declare war for those U.S. personnel to defend themselves. So what does that look like for our ships in the Red Sea is one of the bigger picture questions here, right? But anyways, right now we've got a group, we'll see if it goes anywhere, but a group, less than 10% of Congress, I should say that as well, less than 10% of the House of Representatives actually signed on to this. But either way, I think it is notable that there are some people in the United States pushing back saying maybe we should continue things against the Houthis, but let's go about it this way, through Congress instead of just through presidential action. The last thing I'll say there is to give an idea of kind of how quickly this can just go. In the last week, and this all kind of flies under the radar, I feel like a lot of you watching this video, consuming this kind of content, know this, but if you go ask somebody on the street, just a random American citizen, I feel like this is going to completely catch them off guard. The United States in the last week carried out offensive military strikes in 4 different countries, right? We killed al-Shabaab militants in Somalia. We killed Houthi militants in Yemen. We conducted strikes in Syria against IRGC-backed facilities and Iraq against IRGC-aligned militias. For a country not at war, I feel like your average citizen might be surprised to hear that in the past 7 to 10 days, I'll put it there, I feel like the Iraq strike might have been a little longer ago. The past 7 to 10 days, we've got strikes in 4 different countries throughout the world. Like that's significant, right? Then turning to ground operations, Israel says that over the course of the past week, they have eliminated over 100 Hamas militants, specifically in the Khan Yunis area of the Gaza Strip. That is a southern portion of Gaza. It does not look like at this point that Israel is going to have any of the Palestinian civilians move back into the north. There was a little debate about that right when kind of the ground operation kicked off. Israel started saying civilians up north, move down south. This is where the war is going to be. Don't be in the war zone. And there was some speculation. This wasn't anything official coming out of Israel, not by a long shot. There's some speculation that Israel might move through and try to clear the north and then essentially open back up the north to the civilians and say, now move back north. And that would alleviate a lot of the pressure in the south. Right now, Israel's trying to move into places like Khan Yunis, where there's twice as many civilians, if not more, than there would have been if they could move back up to the north. It doesn't sound like that has happened. Now, part of the reason for that is there continue to be military operations up north. You continue to see offensive activity carried out by Israel and Hamas in the northern portion of the Gaza Strip. And for every individual attack, every rocket attack, every IED that goes off, every building that is detonated, it shows Israel that the north is far from clear. Again, just the volume and complexity of the tunnel networks under the city is far from being totally discovered or completely destroyed. So I think at this point, it looks like the north is not yet clear enough to move the civilians back up. Military operations will continue there. But for now, a lot of the focus is in the south around Khan Yunis. Then shifting over to the Hamas side, they claimed responsibility for 10 attacks against Israeli forces in the past 24 hours. Included in this grouping of attacks, they said they detonated the entrance to a tunnel after Israeli soldiers had entered. Again, kind of speaking to how deliberate Israel has to be when they're clearing these tunnel complexes. At any point, they could be booby-trapped, or you might be moving through the tunnel and you get through the entrance and think we made it. There's no booby trap there. And then halfway through the tunnel, there's another charge that goes off. So a lot of the clearance operations are not necessarily soldier first, just running through, making sure everything's clear. But there's dogs, canine units being used, robots. But all of this, it just takes a long, long time to effectively clear all of these areas of any booby traps. Additionally, they say, Hamas says that they struck multiple Israeli tanks and bulldozers with tandem charge RPGs. We've got some footage here, kind of the standard footage put out by Hamas recently. A little bit of a decrease as of late, but we're seeing a lot of these tandem charge RPGs being fired against Israeli armored vehicles at relatively close range all across different portions of the Gaza Strip. But that's all I got for now. Of course, if interested in this or other national security subjects, be sure to check out the Substack that I've got linked in the description below. Look, we've started to bring some people on board. I'm really excited about this. Some experts, and they're going to be contributing written pieces pretty regularly for free that complement the topics I'm talking about in these videos. So the idea is, if you watch these videos, you like what we're talking about, or interested in this kind of thing, head over to Substack. There's free options. You can get these articles for free, and you can get just more in-depth analysis of some of these things. I think it's going to be a lot of value. I hope you like it. Check it out if interested. But thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time.